Today's episode is brought to you by Media for All, which was set up to help encourage more Black, Asian, and other ethnic talent into media, and to provide a support and mentoring network to ensure talent flourishes in the media industry that we all love. If you're looking for a mentor or would like to mentor young ethnic talent, check them out at mediaforall.org.uk, and it is all 100% free.
Hi, before we get to this week's podcast, I would like to make an apology. I recorded this podcast with Iris Meijer on a Zoom call, and for whatever reason, the audio isn't great. There's a bunch of glitches, which means you can't always exactly hear what Iris says, which is really frustrating because it was a very natural and fun conversation I really enjoyed. So we're not going to be able to re-record it, unfortunately, because she's a very busy lady. So I'm going to put this out anyway, but just try and see through the glitches because what she has to say is inspiring and brilliant, and I'm really proud to share this with you. Hello and welcome to the Shiny New Object podcast. My name is Tom Ollerton. I'm the founder of Automated Creative, and this is a podcast about the future of marketing. Every week or so, I have the pleasure and the privilege of interviewing one of our industry's leaders. And this week is no different. I'm on a call with Iris Meijer, who is CMO at Vodafone Business. Iris, for those listeners who don't know who you are and what you do, could you give everyone an overview of your career and what you do at the minute?
Absolutely. Thanks, Tom. I'm delighted to be here. So I'm indeed the CMO of Vodafone Business. I'm originally from Finland, so I've actually now lived in the UK about 15 years. And it was Finland's 103rd Independence Day this week, Sunday. So I've been very much reminiscing the good old days in Finland. But London is my home. I worked in the tech and IT telco industry for way too many years now. I'm still passionate about it. I worked for Nokia before Vodafone Business, and that actually took me to San Francisco as well. Yeah, excited to be here today.
Fantastic. So we're going to do some getting to know you questions now. And you've chosen a question which I really love and not many people do. So we'll jump straight to that. And the question is, what is that work fuck up that has really changed your career? What was that mistake that you made where at the time you were just so red-faced and embarrassed about it and thought the world could swallow you up, but you're so glad it happened in the end? What was that story? Can you share that with us?
Yeah, no, I can. And it actually ended up with me being fired. So it was a pretty major fuck up, if I may say so. So it happened quite many years ago already now. I was working in a startup. And as often is the case, and should be the case in startups, we were all so super passionate about the product. And we worked day and night to get it to the market. And I was so focused on really promoting it. We were winning marketing campaign awards. We got quoted in FT, and we were recognized as a hot new startup. So it was super exciting. However, it didn't even crawl in. And we were completely puzzled. So in the end, I got fired, and I've always accounted it for the failure of creating demand. That was my task. And I think I had gotten so swept away by the brilliance of the product that I forgot the ever important thing a marketer should always do. Take a step back, analyze the market, and listen to your customers. But I have to say, Tom, also getting fired, it made me think what is important for me and my career. And also, it made me value myself much more.
So getting fired, not great, not a good feeling. And it's so good that you see that as a positive experience now. But can you talk me through how you picked yourself up? What was the process of getting yourself started, reevaluating your position and planning the next move?
Now, but as you can imagine, at that point, I was very low, and it was absolutely horrible. I felt that I failed at the work, but then also getting fired. It's really tough. So I think for me, I actually took some time off, and my elderly parents live in Finland, so I took some time off. I was traveling with them, and I guess a lot of self-reflection went through my mind. But I think it was actually when new job, and when I actually realized how my opinion was respected there and really good at what I was doing, it made me really realize this whole experience, what it taught, and I realized that I'm actually much more resilient than I thought I would be.
And so you wouldn't recommend someone lose their job, but it's great to hear about how you turn that around. But what are those bad recommendations that you hear from people around you or people in the industry that you think people should ignore?
Well, I think many, especially in today's world, are related to digital tools and data, actually. And there's this sense, and it's too prevalent today, unfortunately, that technology is in control of us. But digital tools are not the be-all and end-all. I think we must remember to always look at the output that they provide and how we can use tech in a much more purposeful and thoughtful way, so that it actually serves us rather than the other way around. But also, it was actually one of my team members. She came up with this a very good, very topical recommendation that quite often we hear, and we have heard for years now, that direct marketing is dead. And what we have seen this year is that direct marketing is anything but that. It has, in fact, the experiential marketing tool. So I think that's actually really fantastic, because it really makes us think about that we need to keep staying curious and being open, close the door to something completely, because you never know what's happening. Nobody ever happen, and now it's quite a lot changed the landscape for us.
So I love that line, which is you should get the digital tools to serve us and not the other way around. Makes so much sense, so logical. But how do you actually in practice do that? It's easy to see brands getting very wedded to the data points that come out of digital tools. And sometimes they become, in my experience, kind of fixated on them, whereas they're not necessarily meaningful to the business. So it's quite hard to move away from digital signals like that and digital tools when there isn't an alternative. So how do you make sure that those digital technologies are serving you as opposed to the other way around?
Oh, Tom, I'm like, sorry, I nearly interrupted you. I'm so with you. And I've been there myself as well. It's so easy to just like blindly follow them and believe in them. And I guess maybe because I've been there myself, I also now recognize it. I am such a firm believer in using the right technology and moving away from the opinions and gut feelings. However, and data does sit at the heart of that. We really need to ensure, to your point as well, that it actually drives actions rather than just have the data for the sake of it. And let me give you an example. I joined Vodafone Business, I think it's now nearly 3 years ago. And we had so much data. Oh my God. And my team was like, yeah, we don't have data. We can't measure return on investment. We can't do this and that. And I was like, I've never seen this much data. But the challenge is that we had all this data. It was fragmented, it was disparate. But also we had these fancy digital tools, like the best tools, Ferraris and Lamborghinis in a garage. But nobody ever uses them. They take them for a spin to a local coffee place, and that's it. And it's just like making the data actually to bringing it together and combine it with third-party data sources as well, and really getting the instructions of the data. Like there's so much research as well. We had so much fantastic research, but it was not linked to our business, our commercial. You really need to make a clear impact. clear link to the business and really clear actions as well out of the data. I've been there myself as well. It's just even yet, like we are close to having a single view that really drives with better actions and understanding the impact, but it does take a lot of effort.
So, how do you get the human bit right in that situation? So you've got the right tools. I like that analogy of the the Ferrari sitting in the garage. But in my experience of running a data and creative business, I find that you have people in brands who are great at data, great at that sort of left brain thinking, and then you have a whole other team who are good at the sort of brand right brain thinking. And there tends not to be a great gel between those two skill sets and types of people. So how do you navigate that? So yes, you got great tools, and yes, you got great analytical people, and yes, you got great creative people, but sometimes there's a tension there. Is that a tension that you encourage, or is it something you're trying to solve?
I encourage, but what you're saying is extremely critical, because another thing that I feel that it's happening now on the technology, we're so focused on the data that we actually forget the creativity, and that's at the heart of our marketing. Like, you need to win the hearts and minds. It really is the balance of the art and the science that comes with our job. You have to pay attention to the art as well. So you can't just go with the data. It doesn't serve on its own, as we discussed. So I want that tension there, and I want these two parties to be very, very strong and work together, because without one another, it doesn't work. When you actually manage the balance really, it's beautiful. It's really beautiful, but you cannot forget the creativity. And I'm so worried that in today's world, we're just moving too far towards the data and don't really think about what captures the attention of our customers. It's never going to be the data. It's the data that's helping the right kind of creativity. It's the combination of the right insights, tactics, and messaging and creativity. That's the power.
So before we get onto your shiny new objects, I'm really keen to know what has been the best investment of your time, energy, or money in the last few years in your career?
It's always the same thing. It's my team, hands down. I've been there. If your team is not happy and engaged, you will fail. If your team doesn't understand the strategy, the goals, and they role in that, you will fail. And more often than not, what I've seen, you will need to look at yourself at the mirror first. So absolutely the best investment of my time, energy, and the money as well is team.
And just to jump back to something you just said, you have to start by looking in the mirror at yourself. What do you mean by that?
So let me give you an example. This happened quite early on in my career. I was very passionate about a certain project, and I am a pace, like I have pace, like I'm always pace setting my team, and sometimes way too much. So my team was telling me, they said, Iris, it's fantastic you have the drive, it's fantastic you have the passion. However, you need to take us with you. So I really had to hard look at the mirror myself and thought, okay, the reason we were failing wasn't my team, it was me not taking them with me.
This episode of the Shiny New Object podcast is brought to you in partnership with Madfest. Whether it's live in London or streamed online to the global marketing community, you can always expect a distinctive and daring blend of fast-paced content, startup innovation pitches, and unconventional entertainment from Madfest events. You'll find me causing trouble on stage, recording live versions of this podcast, and sharing a beer with the nicest and most influential people in marketing. Check it out at www.madfestlondon.com. Okay, so we are at the halfway stage now. And what we're going to do is we are going to talk about your shiny new object, which is a really interesting one, which is CMOs having a seat in the boardroom. So can you explain to the audience what you mean by that and why it's your shiny new object?
Thanks, Tom. It's a topic that I've been passionate about for quite some time now. That said that only 5% of marketeers have the confidence that they can influence the direction of the business that they work for. And it's actually 55% when it comes to the CEOs. And that is quite a big difference. But in this research, what really strikes me the most is that as marketeers, we actually seem to rate ourselves lower than our peers rate us. How is that even possible? And if you think about the incredible work marketers have done this year alone at a time of great uncertainty and having to adapt to change almost overnight, I think we have definitely earned our spot at the top. We just need to know and understand our value and really grow in confidence in the real impact we are able to have on our customers and really supporting the business goals.
And so how linked is that to your point before about the bad recommendations, that there's a gap between the data and the signals that comes back from these technical tools that don't necessarily correlate or communicate with the boardroom? So like at worst it would be like vanity metrics like likes or engagement rates, for example, must be just head scratching to a CEO. I mean, it makes sense to us as marketing people because we've sort of bought into that narrative. But is that why there's a 5% confidence that CMOs can feel that they can influence the future of a business? Is it because they don't have the right data, the right language? What's driving that absolute lack of belief when it comes to influencing the future of a business?
It's really interesting you put it that way, Tom, and you might be right, because the interesting thing is that data does sit at the heart of this. But to your point and what I mentioned earlier, you really need to have the right data. Like if you think about it, if marketeers do not understand the strategy of the business and be commercial and really understand the business goals, it's very hard to tie in the right metrics with the business goals as well. Because in the end of the day, to your point, the likes and the engagement, it doesn't really tell much. It's the bottom line. It's if it increases revenues, if it increases margin, it's really sometimes quite black and white. But I am a firm believer that we can show right kind of KPIs as well. And I've been in many discussions where marketing is saying, oh, we shouldn't even try to measure marketing return on investment, and it's impossible to make a link to revenues. I don't believe so. I think there are the right kind of metrics. We can show it. Data. When it comes to working with many functions in the organization. So product, for example, especially in the B2B world, the product development, and I gave you an example when I worked in a startup. Product development comes up with this fantastic product, they're super excited about it, and then when the product is almost ready to the market, they come to marketing and say, you market it now, it's yours. And then it's the market. Actually, what should happen is that marketing brings the right kind of insight to product development even before they start to develop any products, so that they actually understand what are the customer needs and how to develop the right kind of product to actually solve the customer needs and to have proper outcomes as well. That's how it should be. So it starts from there, the marketing, right kind of insight at the right time. And then let me give you another example. And this year has really shown it. Sales. So marketing needs to work hand in hand with sales. Often digital is especially again in a B2B world, digital is not that, sales is not that familiar with it. And this year it's been marketing who taught sales how to use the digital tools, how to actually do digital marketing. And now we need to work even closer together to actually ensure that marketing again is at the beginning of the customer journey, is educating our customers, informing our customers, because most of the customer journey in B2C and B2B happens online. The role of marketing is such important. So again, when we have the data, we can do it cleverly. We've all seen the mass marketing, even like through LinkedIn and all that, people just spamming you all the time. That's not what it's about. You need to be very targeted. You need to understand your customers. And who is better to do that than marketing with our insight? So it's not just the right KPIs, which is super critical for the boardroom to understand what marketing is doing, but it's also influencing at the right time.
So you make so much sense, and you make a brilliant argument for why CMOs should be in the boardroom. And to some senses, you're preaching to the converted. It makes so much sense that marketing have got the right kind of data to bring to product development. They've got the right kind of data to bring to the sales team. So that for me is just so logical and so obvious, but why isn't it happening? What is the blocker in the boardroom that is preventing this crucial data getting to those super important departments?
I think, to be honest, that quite often it's the marketeers themselves, because we do have the data, we do have the means. I think we just need to have the confidence to show what we have and how it actually can impact the business. I was talking to one of our product line heads, and he said to me, Iris, you know what? I am growing 30% quarter on quarter. I have the same product, I have the same salespeople, but the marketing message is different. So I think they recognize it. It is there. I think we just really need to ourselves understand our impact as well and be vocal about it.
Yeah, I heard this best put by Jerry Dakin, who's been on the podcast a few times actually, from GSK, and he says marketing is really bad at marketing itself, ironically. And I think there is a bit of that we do the job, we bring in the results, but we're terrible at telling people about it. I mean, even in my position as a founder of a business, I spend all of the time trying to make the work, and then very little time goes into actually marketing the success of that work. Even though that is what we do as a business, it's interesting.
It's absolutely true, and even within my team, I was discussing with my team. I was like, we are always so focused on the future. We are always like, what's next, looking at the future, doing that. But we sometimes reflect and look past and think, oh my God, we actually achieved that. We never stop, and we should.
And so, how do you think that brands should deal with the issue of CMOs having a very short tenure? I mean, there's always a new stat every year, but it's somewhere between a year and a year and a half, or best 3 years, being the average tenure of a CMO. But yet you look at marketing academia, whether that's Mark Ritson or his fellow marketing experts that say that investing in brand building delivers the best ROI when it's done over a 10 or 20 year period. And no CMO wants to come to a job and just pick up what the last person did and just sort of replicate that message. They want to make their own stamp, like a politician in some senses. That people want to protect not only their political and marketing careers, but they don't necessarily want to fit into someone else's 10 or 20 year vision for the brand. So how could a CMO or senior marketing person listening to this podcast do the right thing by the brand by building that constant brand building element over a long period of time, but also looking after their career where they need to show an improvement quarter on quarter?
That's a really true dilemma, and it's actually also shocking statistics, because in the end of the day, it's very difficult to make your mark in a year and a half, mark to that effect. And I think it's also part educating the other board members of because quite often and I was advocating a lot about the marketing KPIs and the revenues and all that, which is absolutely critical. But that is very short-term focused marketing campaigns and all that. And sometimes this really takes a lot of time to educate our stakeholders that when it comes to brand, to your point, it takes a long time. And in the end of the day, that is actually, and there are so many research of that, really having a powerful brand, that's the best way to increase your revenues. It is not just the short-term campaigns you do. So I think part of it is to educate the stakeholders, because of course, yes, marketeers want to make a stake on the ground and show what they can do, but it's also the pressure coming from the stakeholders, I would say, because when you are a new marketeer, they can be like, yeah, this didn't work, that didn't work, and we are still not recognized. Well, what do you expect after a couple of years? Of course you are not. So I think it's a lot to do with educating stakeholders as well, and us also being firm on what is important. Brand building takes a long time and it needs to be consistent, but in the end of the day, everyone will be successful if you manage to do that. It's your third or fourth position after you started a journey in one company, you can still be proud of that, what you achieved.
So what advice would you give to marketing people listening to this podcast who are like, I agree with Iris, I need to educate the stakeholders? What is the best way to educate a group of stakeholders who don't necessarily buy into what you're doing or don't understand marketing or don't have the appetite to understand it in the way that we do?
And is quite often it is the data. It is the right data though. So it's not about I feel or I think, because that's always questionable, and you have the right kind of data to show. That's very difficult to argue against. So it is the data, and as I said, technology is not be end and all that, but when you really use it to your advantage and have the right data, you can convince people.
So we're coming to the end of the podcast now. So if someone's listening to this podcast and they think, right, okay, I need to get myself on the boardroom, or I want to be a CMO who gets to that position, and someone wanted to discuss that with you, how would you like them to reach out to you?
Well, I already mentioned about being inundated by LinkedIn messages and invites. I think we are all so excited about this new, very digital world that we are all using all the possible digital tools. But sometimes it's very, very difficult to make your mark. I'm using LinkedIn myself a lot. It's very easy to fail in that one, and I've done it as well. But if you reach out to me in LinkedIn, if you are relevant and if you're funny, I love that. I think we need a little bit more fun in our days, and everyone reaching out to me, having a little joke or something that makes me laugh or have a smile in my face, that will go a long way.
Wow, that is such an excellent bit of sales training advice there at the end of a marketing podcast. Brilliant. If you're going to reach out, if you're going to fill up my inbox, at least make me laugh. Fantastic. Iris, that was a total pleasure. Thanks so much for your time.
Thanks, Tom.
Hi, just before you go, I'd really appreciate it if you could take the time to write a review of the Shiny New Object podcast on Apple Podcasts or iTunes, whatever it's called these days, or whichever podcast provider you use. We're an indie podcast, so it would go a long way for us if you could just share the word and give us a bit of a support on those channels. That would just be fantastic. If you haven't got time, that's also cool. And yeah, if you could tell your colleagues about the podcast, and also, if possible, don't forget to subscribe. And I'd love to hear your feedback. If you'd like to speak on the podcast or be a guest, or you think I'm asking the wrong questions, anything, I'd be super interested to hear what you think. So please email me at tom@automatedcreative.net. That's TOM at, I'm not going to bother spelling it. Anyway, you'll work it out. Thanks so much.